The more masculine you are, the more women you will attract. Now, I have to make sure I break that down because I want us to be on the same page when I say something like that. It's very easy to confuse what I'm saying to you have to be a man who makes a ton of money, is in the best shape of his life, has girls at his disposal, and whatever, some other fourth thing. But that's not what I'm talking about because anybody who has witnessed men go down that path or have gone down that path themselves will realize that there's a certain emptiness that follows you if that's all your life has come to at the end. And so, what I'm referring to when I say this is the personal development model. And what is the personal development model? It's a very simple model to understand. And honestly, at our cores, it is the fulfillment model. It is the pathway to our fulfillment as men. And so it's a very simple one. It starts off with a person, starts off with you at the bottom. Once you have a certain level of mastery over yourself, you take care of yourself, you got some money coming in, you know how to form relationships, you have some type of creator or something that you believe in. Once you're able to practice those habits that go along with those things, you start to have a certain level of mastery to yourself and it starts to transcend. Well, what happens when you take a man and he has money and he has the body and he's able to get any type of woman he wants and he has a creator that he follows? What happens next? 9 times out of 10, and this happens to men sometimes in their late 20s, maybe their 30s, even their 40s, where they say, you know what? I want a family. And this is biological. Something happens to people, but it happens to men as well, chemically, where one day it's like, all right, I'm kind of sick and tired of dealing with floozies. And we want to make sure that we have a family, maybe pass a legacy on. People say legacy, but personally, I want to have, I guess that is legacy. I take that back. But anyway, you want to have a family. And the same process starts. You want to have mastery over yourself, have mastery over your wife, have mastery over your family. And once you're able to do that, once you're able to make sure that you, your wife, your children are taking part in actions that make sure that not only that you guys survive, but you thrive, then it moves on, it transcends to the next level. And what is the next level? It's simply a community. What is a community? A community is nothing but a lot of families who are agreeing to work with each other to make sure that they are good and their families are good. Point blank, period. And again, same thing follows that. And each one of these respectively has its own area of study that you can dive very deep into, right? But just for the sake of our conversation, I'm speeding past it. Starts with the self, goes to the family, families become community, and community then becomes culture. You understand? And when we really think about this, when you raise children, you're raising children under a certain culture. When you're raising children under a certain culture, in order to uphold that culture, you need your community. And if in order to have communities, you have to have families. And in order to have families, you have to have people. All right. And for those of us who are black out there, this is the reason why a lot of the black community is messed up and our culture is messed up. It's simply because, for one, the culture's there, but they lack community. Once you lack communities because you lack families. And then if you lack families, you're lacking the self, the mastery of the self. This is why, if you look at history back in the day, the first thing they did was try, in order to attack the community, attack the cultures, they started going after the families. They started removing the men out of the households. And once that happened, the tower crumbles. Okay. So now that you understand that, so what do I mean when I say that the more masculine you are, the more women that you attract? And it's very easy to understand. It's simply understanding that there is right now a lack of men who not only have a basic level of understanding of mastery over himself, but actually has a vision and a plan for himself, his family, and his potential community. Most men lack this, especially when I talk to a lot of feminine women. They always tell me the same thing where it's like, oh my God, I like your vision. I usually don't men who have thought about it this far, thought about it this much, right? A lot of guys just don't have it because, one, they don't care, two, they don't know, or three, they're just not putting in enough effort. And so what I realized is, when the more masculine I become, when it comes to this area, planning, understanding myself, understanding how to protect and provide for my family, making sure that my family not only is in place to survive, but is in place to thrive. Thinking about even long term after that, it's like what I want to do for my potential community, the person I want to be in that community. When I think about all these things, when I write all these things down, when I have all these visions and I'm talking to potential wives, I realize that whenever I start to speak that way, the attraction towards me goes extremely high. And I know because, again, is most guys don't come to the table with this type of thing. They're either just trying to have a lot of children with no real plan, or they're trying to get rich with no real plan. And they just expect women to be there, but they don't have a place for them. And so, again, I want to reiterate the fact that as men, it's very important that you have some type of vision in place. And of course, in your vision, if you're able to get more detailed, you want to have a place for a potential wife or potential children if you are following the fulfillment model. And when I start to do that, when I start to talk about that, I see a lot of women around me get excited. I start to attract, I want to say, three types of women. The first one are slores, just hoes. I don't know how else to say that. It's just what they are. They're promiscuous, right? Then there's the middle, which I call potential wives, women who have the mindset but don't have the formal training. And then there are wives who have a decent foundation of formal training, and all they need is a man to fill that spot and direct her so she can become the best woman for him. And so when I think about this stuff, I realize that the moment I start being serious, because this didn't happen for me until I switched gears and started going from short-term relationships to long-term relationships, really looking for marriage, really looking for a wife, really saying like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I'm not the type, whenever you're trying to maybe get into somebody's pants, everybody has different types of game of how they're going to do that. But once I put that down and I started being very direct about the things that I want and I'm looking for in a long-term partner, I realized that a lot of women respond very well to that. Now, first things first, let me make sure I say this. I'm not talking about American women. I'm not doing that. Most of the American women that I meet are simply promiscuous, and they don't even make the potential wife category because they don't have the mentality. I still have to fight them on the philosophy of what a family even is, a unit actually is. And I'm not doing that, especially when I've traveled enough to meet a lot of women who are potential wives already, who already understand that, yeah, the man is in charge. The woman does this. The woman bears children. I want to be a wife. I want to have kids. And, that comes with its own set of problems as well. But what I am noticing is that I attract a lot. Once I start talking like that, once I start talking about the plan, once I start talking about the things that I want to do, once I start talking about their position, then the attraction for me, even for the promiscuous women, it goes sky high. And it's simply because one, for me, the fulfillment model is a foundation for anything. Any country or a society, it has to follow the personal development model. You can name a country on a map, and I can guarantee you that it has a culture. I guarantee you it has community. I guarantee you it has families. I guarantee you it has people, right? Because that's just how it is. This is how, as human beings, we have survived for so long. Everybody is different. And so a lot of my message in a lot of my earlier videos, I talk about making sure you're putting yourself in a place that shares your same values. You may have been born in a country and the values that they have, the culture that they follow is a completely different way of thinking for you. But when you travel like I have, you realize that there are other places that think completely differently, and they think more in line with what you think, and they don't make you crazy. So that's number one. It's about finding your place of where you will fit in naturally, right? And then number two, it's about shifting the women. Now, of course, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. Most men, especially when they're looking for women, they have different spots open. I know like more religious men who they're just looking for a wife, point blank, period. They're looking for a wife. And the biggest thing for them is finding a woman who is as deeply religious as they are. And not only is deeply religious, but is also taking the actions, following the teachings of their religion. So I've met those guys. I've met guys who, of course, where they're looking for a wife, they're essentially going through a bunch of promiscuous women because they know a wife when they see one, and then they plan on switching gears, right? And then, of course, there's the other guy who they may have a girl or two on the side, but he's honest with them. He knows, he's like, hey, this is what I'm looking for, and if you're not really looking for that, this is not going to be anything. And then, of course, he's looking for his wife, da 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 da. But essentially what I'm trying to tell you, the message of this video, is the more masculine you become in this category, as far as understanding your vision for yourself, your family, your community, the more masculine you become for that. And again, you mix in a little bit of semen retention. When I mean a little bit, I mean a little bit. When you mix that in, it really starts to exude from your essence. One of the things, and I wanted to make a separate video about it, but I think I'm just going to include it in this video, is a lot of guys are having trouble with attraction, right? When it comes to women. And because of course I'm like you guys, I'm a student in the game, student and practitioner in the game. I'm realizing that there are basic levels of attraction when you start to learn. You're like, okay, make sure you're showering every day. You have a face hygiene routine. You make sure you're brushing your teeth. You make sure you're getting frequent haircuts. You're making sure that you're dressing a certain way as far as like being more clean. Maybe you iron your clothes. You're not just wearing sweatpants. You're actually trying to have some style, right? There's basic levels of attraction. Of course, that has its place and it works. But what I'm realizing is that I've met a lot of guys who passed all those boxes. They checked all those boxes, and yet they're still having problems. They're tall, they dress well, they look okay. They may be a little socially awkward, but I know that, first of all, a lot of women are socially awkward. So it's not that that's a deal breaker for a lot of women. But I noticed that they're still having issues. And I'm starting to realize, and I thought about this a couple days ago, where there is an essence that attracts a lot of women, and this kind of tracks with semen retention attraction. And let me cook for a second, right? So if you've ever been in this type of world, there's something called the male gaze, which I haven't studied because I could care less about it. But then there's the female gaze, right? And when you look at the comparison, just to give you guys a quick comparison, right? The male gaze is basically just a woman who in a bikini and she has great assets. You know what I'm saying? She's got great assets, pretty face, and the works. You guys know what I'm saying. That's the male gaze, because that's all we really care about. That and some personality and da 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 da. But the female gaze works more so as a story. That's how I like to put it. It's like, imagine if you're looking at a picture, right? Now, for most guys, again, woman on a beach, she's standing completely still, not posing or anything. She just has really great assets. We're like, great. That's all we need. We're good. Okay, let's see if our personality matches, right? But for women, it's a completely different ball game, because there has to be something around you, I call it your essence, that draws her in. So again, the best example that I can give is like, if a man is, let's say he's standing on a rock, right? You guys know how like the warriors pose, where he has like one foot up on the rock and then maybe he has like a sword in the air or something like that. You guys know what I'm talking about? Imagine that without a sword. And he has like his shirt is like torn open a little bit. He's got a little chest hair and stuff like that. His hair is really like messy, but it's well groomed. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things. There's like smoke in the background. You can tell, like, when you look at this picture, it has a story with it. It's like, okay, this guy's obviously been through some stuff. He's probably going through things that make you think and talk. That's the female gaze. And so when I think about it, it's when you look at that picture, there's a certain essence that you get. I believe the younger generation are calling these things like aura. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, look at that aura, right? But just for context on that, it's you. whenever you have a strong masculinity, first of all, anybody who's been on semen retention, who it's worked correctly for them, that you know that your essence changes. You know that you can feel it within you. Something is pouring out of you, and other people notice that, right? Basic levels of semen retention attraction. But what I'm seeing is when a man knows how to do the basic levels of attraction when it comes to dressing well, smelling good, all that jazz, and he also has a semen retention, and then when she talks to him, he also has like this plan, which of course makes you a leader, makes you assertive. This is the thing that you're going for. Nobody's going to stop me. When you mix all these things together, I find that the attraction gets so strong within a lot of women because it's simply that not only is it polarizing to their femininity, but it's also one of those things that most men don't have. Yesterday's video, if you've watched it, I broke down what percentage of the population, at least the men's population in America, were in shape. And guys who were above average or well above average, it only makes up like 20%. And so if I did a certain study, and I can't study this, but if I did a study and I took all the guys in America and I said how many of these guys have a plan not only for themselves to self-master themselves, but they also have a plan for their family. They also have a plan for their community and the things, just essentially where they're going to place themselves in their community, what type of family they're going to have, how do they want to run it, what are the roles of him, what are the roles of his wife. How many of these guys know these things? Well, from somebody who was a men's coach for a lot of number of years now, I realized that the average guy just doesn't have this thing. And so just by you having this thing, you are immediately placing yourself in a completely different category in a lot of women's minds. And so the reason why I'm making this video is because I want you to think about, one, what does self-mastery mean to you? Like, what are your likes? What are your dislikes? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are you going for right now in the next 30 days? What are you going for in the next 3 months, next 6 months, next year? What's the plan? And then I want you to transcend above that and ask yourself, what about a family? How many kids do you want? Where do you want to live? Are you working? Your wife is working? Why is that? Like, give me the story of your family and where people fit in that story, right? Most men don't have that. And then if you're at that level, I want you to transcend that and ask yourself, where do you place yourself in society? Are you at the upper echelon of society? Are you simply a middle class guy in society? Are you a low class guy, right? Again, I'm not saying that you have to be the best of the best in every category, but what I am saying is you have to have an idea. You see what I'm saying? Most people don't have an idea. Most people don't know. And I realize that when a woman, especially if she's a feminine woman, when she meets somebody who is really on the ball when it comes to these things, you get a completely different woman. And so that's all I have for you guys today. Listen, if you like this video, If you made it this far, type in locked in. And with that, guys, I'll see y'all on the next one. All right, peace out.